Thanks for listening. This is Heartstock Radio, and I'm your host, Carol Murphy. Today, our guest is Dinesh Tadepalli, and he is the founder of Incredible Eats. In just a moment, he is going to tell us all about what the heck is going on over there at Incredible Eats. Also, I'd like to remind you that we're on Facebook. You can also email us at heartstockradio@gmail.com. And also, drumroll, very exciting, we have a new intern. And Jillian, help me with your last name.
Lewandowski.
Jillian Lewandowski. She's been an incredible asset, and she's actually the person who's responsible for finding our guest today. Jillian, would you like to introduce yourself to our listeners?
Hi, everyone. I'm Jillian. I am Heartstock's current broadcast production intern. A little about me. I was born and raised in Wayne, New Jersey, and am currently a senior at Pace University in New York City, studying sports marketing along with arts and entertainment management. And my hope is to translate my love and passion for all things production, TV, radio, and social media into my future career.
And Jillian, she's actually going to be doing a program here coming up. So you'll be hearing much more from Jillian. And big thumbs up. And thank you so much, Jillian, for all your hard work. But we shall be right back. We're going to take a little music break, and we shall be right back with Dinesh. This is Heartstock. Thanks for listening.
This land was made for you and me. As I went walking that ribbon highway, I saw above me.
You're listening to Heartstock Radio. I'm your host, Carol Murphy, and Clark Grant is in the studio. Our guest today is Dinesh Tadepalli, and he is the founder of Incredible Eats. I'm hungry. I haven't eaten dinner yet, but help us out, Dinesh. What the heck are you doing over there at Incredible Eats?
Yeah, thanks, Carol. Hello, everyone. This is Dinesh Tadepalli, and I'm the founder of Incredible Eats. So we invented edible cutlery to help people reduce single-use plastic and reinvent the way we eat our food in a more guilt-free and fun way.
So the guilt-free part, we've had several guests already on the show that have really talked a lot about plastics. And what the heck is the guilt-free part of your company?
Okay.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, sure. So as some of you may know that by 2050, there would be more plastic than fish in the ocean. Since 1907, we have been dumping plastic into the oceans and into the landfills at an unprecedented rate, and it's actually exponentially increasing going forward. And it's so common now that when we go get an ice cream or a takeout, we don't even think twice, why are we using a plastic spoon and where it's going to lead up to. Like, for example, the whole idea of our company started when I went to an ice cream shop and when I was throwing my plastic spoon into a bin, and the bin was completely full with cups and spoons. And that's when it clicked. Where are these going and how long are these going to last? Why would 10 minutes of my ice cream need to leave out 1,000 years of footprint in the planet? And that actually kickstarted my dream of making something which can help people to remove or reduce single-use plastic usage. And the second reason is I want to preserve the planet for the future generations. Nature has a very nice way of giving us back. If you give good, it gives us back good. If you give something bad, it gives us back something bad. So all the plastics that we dumped, it's breaking down into microplastics. And right now, microplastics are seen in the oceans, rivers, rainfall, sea breeze. It's there everywhere right now. And on average, a human consumes about a credit card sized of plastic through microplastics in the food chain already. So I wanted to preserve the planet to my children and the future so that they will not be able to consume a lot of plastics going ahead.
Oh boy, I really want to talk about this credit card size dose of plastics here in just a moment. But first, I really want to talk about you and all the things that you've been doing prior to founding Incredible Eats.
Yeah, sure. So I was born and brought up in India. in a very, very, very religious background, to be frank. And I was taught a lot of discipline and values. Like, for example, my dad used to have such a strict financial discipline, and he used to impart the meaning of content and happiness into me. Like an example, right? He used to make me sleep in a or have a dinner at a very expensive restaurant in a super 5-star hotel, and the next day he used to ask me to sleep on a platform on the train station, even though we had some money. The reason is he used to train me since this childhood, saying that you have to be happy irrespective of what life gives you. So, and on my mother's side, my mother is like a huge fan of donations and giving, and she taught me the value of giving. And after my undergraduate education in India, I came to the US for masters. I did my masters in electrical engineering at USC, and I graduated in 2008. And since then, for about 10 years, I've been working as an engineer in the semiconductor industry in the Bay Area. And as I mentioned, the values, the giving part of it was like very, since childhood, it was so stuck to me that I have decided to donate 1/5 of my salary. And by 2020, I was able to touch 10,000 people's lives by my donations every month. And that's my first life goal that I had long back, and I was very happy to fulfill that. So this is all before Incredible Eats. And Incredible Eats started about 2 years ago. Again, at the same time when I realized the misuse of plastic, and once we started that, then it's going pretty good. Before COVID and after COVID, also it's kind of pivoted towards another B2C segment. But yeah, that's my short background.
Mm-hmm. I have to ask about your upbringing in India. I just finished a book called Caste. And I don't know if you've heard of it or you've read it, but it does compare a lot of the caste system here in the United States to those in India. Can you help us understand how that affected you? I mean, it really sounds like you had some very enlightened parents. But what caste were you, and did it impact your upbringing and who you are today?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So a lot of people assume the caste system in India is kind of in the negative side. It is still existing in the negative side in the lower villages and the smaller places. So basically, the whole point of this caste system originated a long, long time ago, and it originated based on the work that you do. It's like it started in a place that the scientists, workers, business people, workers, and it was not like a differentiation between what work you do. But unfortunately, during the British time, it got divided so badly that people have started fighting with each other with respect to the caste systems. Thankfully, because of the globalization, and again, once we got the independence, it's kind of getting back to normal in a very, very slow pace. But personally, I was not very affected with it because my parents, they did teach me to respect everything and every profession and also everyone. So they've already, I did not have those challenges of, any that came up with the caste system in India.
So coming to the United States, did you see any existing caste systems? I mean, we don't really refer to it as a caste system, but this kind of hierarchical approach to people and the way people are treated. Did you see any parallels there?
To be frank, yes and no. So it depends on this place where I was at. For example, for my business, I traveled a lot. I attended a lot of trade shows across the US. I think I visited about 10 to 15 states in the US, and all these states there are small trade shows, big trade shows, and all that. So on the California, Oregon, and Seattle on the West Coast, I've hardly faced any. It was all okay. But on the East Coast and a couple of the states, when I went to a trade show, I was actually not very well invited. But that's okay. I mean, I understood it in a positive way. I didn't expect it to be in a negative way. So to be frank, right, that show had like 500 people who attended, and I was the only person of color. So that was like a very interesting thing because I was like, okay, I never faced that. But it was not bad. I mean, it's just that I couldn't get good enough of sales, even though I had an amazing product. But that was okay. It made me understand that it's people have been brought up in a different way. It depends on how they've been, how they had their childhood and all that stuff. So
yeah, and I mean, my experience is it definitely, you can notice a difference depending on what region you are in the United States. there
Yes.
is a more profound impact and recognition that, there are unwritten and sometimes written rules for people.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
So, Carol, to add on to that,
yes.
right? This was taught by my parents, right? Like there's no good person or bad person. It's just a person that who has been going through some circumstances since his childhood, right? That's what shapes him. So you can't really go tell one person as, hey, he is so and so or he is not so and so. It's more like, okay, what was the circumstance? What was the neighborhood? What was the upbringing that he had throughout his childhood? Is what makes him up. So you can't really blame a person for that. It's generally the circumstances that melds into the right way or the wrong way. And I understand that. So that I never get offended if someone tells anything to me because I feel that they're ignorant. That's it. Nothing more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about the history of Incredible a little bit.
Mhm.
We touched on that already some, but can you kind of give us a more in-depth idea of, what was your process and the steps that it took for you to get to where you are today?
Yeah, sure. So as I mentioned, in 2017, once my daughter was born, my second kid, I thought I had two kids and my second kid was a daughter. I had a son. And I was like having an ice cream after she was born. And then it kicked me, the realization came into the place. Actually, prior to that, I used to read a lot of books on environment, climate change, plastic pollution, and I used to be an avid hiker. I hike like Mount Whitney, Mount Shasta, and I used to hike a lot. So I'm always close to nature. I used to hate cities. Whenever I go outside for a trip, I generally go to national parks. I don't like to go to cities. So I'm very, very kind of
Cities?
like cities like going to New York
Cities.
City
Great.
or
Okay,
cities.
got it.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. So it's basically I prefer nature over buildings to be like to direct, and that kind of hurted me when I saw that I've not been thinking a lot about what I'm doing when I go for a restaurant or a takeout or an ice cream or anywhere, right? So I really didn't think about it, but we have been brought up with thinking that plastic is okay to use. We don't have the data that we don't pause for a moment and think. And then I realized, as I mentioned, the financial discipline taught me to actually take care of finances of my children. So I was planning for their finances. How do I invest and how do I, make my money work and make more money? And when I was doing that, the realization kicked in and said, hey, what's the point of saving a lot of money to your children if they can't breathe or drink the water or any other food, eat or drink any food in the future, like how we do? So what's the point of me leaving them like say $1 million if they can't live in the planet? So that hit me really hard. I was like, okay, I need to do something about this. And I used my paternity leave for 8 weeks. I went on a trip to find the manufacturer to find the best alternative to plastic. And I visited about 8 different countries across Asia. And I met a lot of people and understood what they were doing against, like to find a best alternate with plastic. And that's when I met my partner, Kruval, in India. And he was also an engineer, just graduated from school. And he was trying to make a machine that can actually automate the manufacturing of edible cutlery. So before going to India, right, I actually did a research in the US itself, how much plastic has been used every day and how much of that has been going to the recycling and how much it's going to the landfills or oceans and all that. And I came across this compostable, biodegradable ware, like which is made out of PLA-based corn or sugarcane, which a lot of people use it instead of plastic, thinking that it's good for the environment. But when I went and researched, I noticed that it's actually not doing good because there's no sorting facilities, there's no industrial composting facilities. You can't throw it away and expect it will degrade in landfills. It will only compost in composting facilities, and not all cities have composting facilities. I went a step further. I went to the composting facilities and asked them, hey, how are you liking these PLA based cutlery? They're like, we don't accept most of the time. I asked why, because they're like, oh, I don't have the machinery or the equipment to separate a compostable spoon versus a plastic spoon, and I don't want any plastic to come into my compost pile. That's why we don't accept any compostable cutlery. Even if they do accept, I went a step further. The compost piles which have this PLA compounds, farmers do not take them because they can't be organic certified. So there are a lot of these challenges across the chain because we never think about what happens after we throw it away. So I literally traveled with a dustbin and see where all it goes and how it ends and how it ends up into the environment. And all this made me realize that edible is the only way. And the reason why edible is better is it actually has a fun quotient to it. Like, for example, Not everyone believes in plastic pollution. It's going to hurt the environment and all that. But they would still end up trying and eating an edible spoon because it's a fun aspect to it. It's like, okay, surprise my friends, surprise my other kids. So that fun quotient will actually make people who don't believe in plastic pollution also use that and act indirectly. And that's why I went to India. I found my partner and I came back to the US. I sold my home in the California. I used all my home sale proceeds to build a facility in India. And that's how it started. This is my history before I introduced the product into the US. It took me 2 years to build the facility. I put all my 5 years of savings. I went all in. I was like, okay, I need to make a big change. And I just went all in. And I introduced the product in early 2019.
We're at that midway point, and I have so many questions to ask you.
Yeah, sure.
I'm very excited. All right. So we're going to take our little music break here. We'll be right back with Dinesh. This is Heartstock. I'm Carol Murphy, your host, and thanks for listening. This is Heartstock Radio. I'm Carol Murphy, your host, and today we have Dinesh.
Tadepalli.
Yes,
Let me help you.
I've said it right like twice,
Yeah.
but I have to pause. Dinesh Tadepalli, thank you so much for being with us and being our guest on Heartstock. So you mentioned PTL or some compostable
PLA-based compostable.
What is
pipe,
PLA?
Yeah. Oh, it's a polylactic acid.
Okay.
It's basically a compound it's a polymer chain similar to what plastic is, but it's made from corn or sugarcane. It's a byproduct of that. So the concept is if we get the polymer chain from a plant-based material instead of petroleum-based material, which plastic comes in, it degrades better. But unfortunately, there is a chemical process involved. And because of that chemical process, the polylactic acid-based biodegradable cutlery needs an industrial setting where there should have good enough amount of heat and moisture for it to degrade. Otherwise, it won't decompose.
And why will farmers not take even composted PLA?
Oh, yeah. The reason is, this is, as I mentioned, right, the chemical process that gets involved to extract the polylactic acid from corn or sugarcane to make into that cutlery, that is not organic. It has some inorganic steps involved. And because of that, all the organic and non-GM farmers cannot use that. And corn mostly is a GM product.
Yeah.
So.
And you also mentioned this credit card size amount of microplastics that we're consuming. So what you're saying is that we are physically eating this. Is this within our lifetime, within a year?
Yes. No, we're eating it right now. So according to the studies, right, they found microplastics in almost everything. It's there in our urine. It's there everywhere. So the water we drink, the air we breathe, the food we eat already has some small amount of microplastics in it. So basically what happened was all the plastics that got dumped into the ocean made it into smaller and smaller and smaller particles. So these particles go back through the rain and comes into, like literally about 6 months ago, there was a survey done at the heart of Yellowstone. Yellowstone doesn't have any ocean or anything, any seashore nearby. And the heart of Yellowstone, where there's no people or there's nothing involved, they went and measured the microplastics in the rainfall. And they found an amazing amount of microplastics in there because basically the oceans are giving it back to us through microplastics. And microplastic is basically a broken down plastic piece, which is less than about 2 millimeter or 1 millimeter. It's a very, very tiny piece of particle. And by the way, there are multiple studies that came out recently. For example, they found microplastics in the placenta of an unborn baby. So it also went into our human body itself. So and it's increasing at a very high pace because we don't stop the plastic production or plastic consumption, and it's going on exponentially right now. And that's what worries me, right? What happens to my kids when they grow up? How are they going to live? That's my biggest concern.
Yeah, and it's my understanding the chemistry part of it is even scarier because these microplastics are attractants to other chemicals. So when it gets
Yes.
into the food chain and into our bodies, or we eat food
Mm-hmm.
that contains it, it's not just the microplastic that we're consuming, it's everything that's
Yep.
clung to it.
That's a great point. In fact, just about 3 weeks ago, a scientist in New York University, they found that all these antibiotic-resistant bacteria, right? They love these microplastic particles because it's like a home for them. It's like you built a nice plastic home for them to live on. So it's not just about plastic coming back. It's actually increasing the amount of antibiotic-resistant bacteria and viruses because they have something to stick onto because it's easy to stick onto.
Yeah. I'm really impressed with what you're doing, and I'm hoping that you can share what lays ahead. Given where you're at right now, where are you going?
Yeah, sure. So with all this background and research, we invented the machinery. We are engineers by background, and that's how we used our engineering skills to make the machinery. And that machinery is actually able to automatically produce or manufacture edible cutlery. We started with the shape of a spoon because that's the easiest to make. The spoon is very simple shape, and we have both tablespoon and a dessert spoon, a smaller, sturdier spoon. And we started with 4 flavors. 2 of them savory and 2 of them sweet. Like we have chocolate vanilla on the sweeter side and oregano and chili and black pepper on the savory side. And we introduced them in the market in 2019. So the first show that I went, a trade show I went called Cater Source. That's where all the caterers and other food service people come in. I was surprised. Like I went with just 10 spoons in my hand and a few paper printouts. I didn't even have like a big nice booth and all that stuff. I just had a small table and I just stood there letting people know that this product exists. And I got my first order of 150,000 spoons from a caterer in Canada. At the time, I didn't even have enough production facility to do that. So once he came and expressed interest, I immediately, again, I used all my savings, my 401k, my retirement accounts, and put back into the machinery in India and scale it up. And within 4 months, I was able to fulfill that order to him. That's my starting point. And since then, I've been going to a lot of trade shows, won many awards. Like we have a news section in our website which shows up all the awards and all the PR that we got for free, and that actually attracted more customers like ice cream shops in Bay Area and Hawaii and other places. We were there in like 10 states in different ice cream shops, smaller ice cream shops, and we started with a premium ice cream chain as well in the US. But this all happened before COVID. The COVID came, all our food service business kind of got stalled. It didn't, no one said no. They said, okay, we'll revisit after COVID. We don't want to take anything new. We just want to try to make ourselves like it affected their livelihood, right? Because in the end, food service is the biggest impacted market because of COVID. Yeah, and that gave us some time to actually pivot towards B2C segments. So a lot of people used to ask us, hey, why can't I buy this at my home? If I want to use it for my party, or I want to use it just to make my children eat cereal, because we can ask them to eat the spoon after eating the cereal with it. So we got a lot of website requests or messages on our website saying that we want to buy directly from you. And that actually gave us some time because the food service got stalled. I had a lot of time. So I read like 6 books. I used my cousins to design my own packaging. We revamped our website. It's all made by me and my cousins. I didn't use anyone else outside. And after in August or September, we went live on our website and Amazon, and we've been selling pretty decent so far without spending any ad dollars. We have not spent a single penny on advertisements till now.
Yeah. What does it taste like? We've got, like 2 minutes. I was hoping you could talk about the taste and then just let our listeners know how they might find you.
Sure. So the taste is very subtle. It's not very like super. I wouldn't say it's very super tasty. The reason is I don't want it to affect the food you eat. Like, for example, most of our B2B customers, they didn't want it to be super tasty because they were afraid that if the ice cream is not tasting good and the spoon is tasting good, then it defeats the purpose. So we put it really subtle, and it's very subtle taste, and it stays firm for like 30 minutes in hot soups. It's a pretty sturdy spoon. You would be surprised of the strength of the spoon. And the concept is you eat with it, and the moisture in the food softens the spoon, and then you can eat after. You can find these spoons on our website at incrediblespoon.com or on Amazon, either way.
So false alarm on the timing there. We actually have a little bit more time. You mentioned your cousins. Anyone that you'd like to do a shout out to on your team?
Yeah, sure.
How did you know which cousin would be Okay, to be on the team. How'd you find
Yeah,
him?
actually, I have one person working with me, Jack Niebel. He's in Colorado. So he's not my cousin, but he approached me. He approached because he expressed interest in saving the planet and, selling edible spoons. And he's been with me since almost the starting. He's been with me for almost 1.5 years. And he does most of the Amazon sales and all that stuff. He's very great. And I would like to do a good shout out to him because he made my work easy, because otherwise it was too much work to handle just one person. And my cousin, another person is Karthik. He was a UX grad from one of the top colleges in the US, and he is one of the brains behind the design of the packaging and the elements. He made those elements. I gave him the ideas, and he made the elements for me.
Excellent. Okay, so you mentioned COVID.
Yeah.
Do you feel like we're kind of at the tail end of it? And do you think,
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So COVID actually, even though it affected our business for like 6 months, but before that, we sold about 1 million spoons in the food service section. And after that, because of B2C pivot, by the way, we're already in the 1,000 stores of TJ Maxx and Home Goods right now. So the COVID actually brought these retail orders. Before that, I didn't even go into any retail side of it. So it gave us an opportunity as well as it blocked the previous opportunity. So I wouldn't say that it really affected us very bad, but it made us more educated, knowledgeable, because we understood how to pivot and how to do more than just the food service section of it. But unfortunately, one bad thing about COVID is people have started using so much of plastic again, because they wanted to keep it really safe and, like, what do you call it? Sanitized and all that stuff, right?
So, yeah.
There's so much of plastic again, and that's what scares me a bit.
Indeedy. Do you have any numbers on that? I mean, that was one thing also that people are really complaining about, the additional waste of all the face masks, especially if they have like a plastic coating in between the two sheets and all the waste. Do you have any numbers on that by chance?
Unfortunately, no. Recently, I've not been looking into that, the numbers section, because I'm very concentrated on the sales. By the way, as you mentioned of the light, I can see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
And thanks to the vaccinations and the science behind the vaccinations, I noticed all my previous food service clients coming back to us and started discussions with us again. So I can see that. I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. It's not there yet, but we can see it.
Yeah. I think we're turning a corner. And it feels really good. I hear a lot of folks, friends and family talking about making travel plans. So that's a good sign, I think.
Yep, definitely. Agree with you.
So how might folks find you?
They can visit our website at incrediblespoon.com, or they can email me at dinesh@i-eats.com. DINESH, Dinesh @i-eats.com.
Thank you so much for being our guest. Really appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, Carol and Jillian. This is really great to talking with you.
And Jillian, thank you. I can't wait for you to be on the air and really experience how much fun this is, chatting with our special entrepreneurs.
Me as well. Thank you.
This is Heartstock, and we shall be back next week. Peace.
Heartstock Radio is a production of KBMF 102.5 Butte America Radio. Hear our programs every Friday at 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time via live stream at butteamericaradio.org.
As I went walking, I saw a sign there, and on the sign it said, "No trespassing," but on the other side it didn't say nothing. That sign was made for you and me. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to New York Island, from Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream.